You know, the Quran has this incredibly powerful idea. What if a mountain, this symbol of pure, unshakable pride, could be shattered? And what if, instead of just turning into dust, it completely exploded into life and became a tree? Well, that's the journey we're diving into.
So the Quran kicks things off with a staggering image. A mountain here isn't just rock and stone, right? It's a symbol for the most rigid, unmoving parts of ourselves. Our pride, our ego, that feeling that we're unbreakable. And this verse says, hey, the divine word is so powerful it could humble and split apart even that.
Now, usually when we think of something shattering, we think of destruction, of it being broken and useless. But the Quran proposes something totally different. This isn't about becoming rubble. It's about a complete transformation, from a state of being static and proud to one that's dynamic and growing and alive.
And this is the central metaphor, right here. The mountain is our fixed pride, our unmoving ego. But when it's struck by divine revelation, it doesn't just crumble. No, it transforms into a tree. A living thing rooted in the earth, sure, but always reaching for the heavens. It literally trades its solid, static form for vibrant, living growth.
So how does a transformation like this even happen? Well, the sources point to this fundamental pattern, a kind of cosmic circuit that seems to be the blueprint for not just this idea, but for creation itself. Let's break it down.
This four-step process is basically the engine of change. It all starts with light. That's the divine command coming from the unseen. This light leads to fire, which is the trial, the test that forges us and reveals our true form. Then comes water, the symbol of mercy that cools those flames and carries life forward. And finally, all of this culminates in life, the tree, creation itself, returning to its source in a state of pure praise.
Okay, so what's really fascinating is that this elemental circuit isn't just some abstract theme. Some interpretations suggest it's literally encoded right into the structure of the Quran itself. And we can see this play out in a sequence of 3 short, incredibly powerful chapters that seem to build on one another.
Let's trace this pattern. First up in Surah Al-Asr, we see a descent. The divine light enters the world of dust, that's our barren state, which leads to the fire of trial. Think of Mūsa's staff striking the empty ground. Next, in Surah Al-Kawthar, the whole thing reverses. The fire of that trial is met with the water of mercy, which leads back to light, kind of like Yunus being reborn from the sea. And then finally, in Surah An-Nasr, we see the return. Here, the fire forges a stone foundation, a solid basis for faith, like the Kaaba raised by Ibrāhīm, which ultimately resolves back into divine light. It's a whole cycle: descent, reversal, and return.
So where does this whole cycle of transformation lead? Well, it all culminates in the principle of Tawḥīd, which is absolute oneness. The idea is that the fire, the water, the mountain, the tree, while they all seem like separate things, they're ultimately just different expressions of a single, unified, divine source.
Now you might be thinking, this cosmic blueprint sounds a bit abstract. But what's amazing is that we can see this exact same pattern mirrored perfectly in the life of one of the Quran's most central figures, the prophet Ibrāhīm, through his 3 legendary trials.
His first huge test is the element of fire. I mean, he's literally thrown into a blazing furnace for challenging the idols of his time. But the fire is commanded to become cool and peaceful for him. See, this isn't just a miracle. It symbolizes the purification of his will. The external fire has no power over someone whose inner self has already completely submitted.
Then comes his second trial, and this one involves stone. Ibrāhīm is commanded to build the Kaaba, raising its foundations from the empty desert. This act establishes a physical form, a solid anchor for faith on earth, something that gives structure to the community of believers for all time.
And the third, the ultimate trial, is a trial of light. His willingness to sacrifice his own son that represents the complete and total surrender of his personal self to the divine will. And it's this ultimate act of submission that opens the door to perfect unity. He's answered not with loss, but with mercy and divine light. Fire, stone, light. You see it? The whole cosmic circuit playing out in one man's life. Of course, all of this, mountains turning into trees, these cosmic circuits, it's all highly symbolic. So you have to ask, why does the Quran speak like this? Well, the text itself tells us it uses parables. These are stories and examples designed as a teaching tool meant to communicate meanings that go way, way beyond the literal. And these parables, they almost act like a filter. You could think about it in modern terms like a test of IQ versus EQ.
A mind that's only focused on pride and raw intellect might just see the literal surface of the story and dismiss it, but a heart that's guided by humility can perceive the deeper pattern underneath. It stops asking, what is it, and starts asking, what does it mean?
And that brings us to the real takeaway here. This grand cosmic pattern, from elemental circuits to the trials of prophets, it's not just ancient history or abstract theology. It's presented as a living, breathing map for our own personal transformation.
The idea is that the revelation, the light, is meant to descend upon the mountain that's inside each and every one of us. Our ego, our pride, our fixed ideas about who we think we are. It's meant to be an active force, one designed to start a change right in our own hearts and minds.
And so, the journey of our own soul can actually mirror this cosmic cycle. We move through the fire of life's trials, hoping for that cooling water of mercy. And the whole point, the goal, is to transform that fixed mountain of ego into a living tree of faith, one that's rooted in submission, but is always reaching for the divine.
So, we're left with this final, really provocative question. This force, this light, is always descending. So the real question isn't if the mountain will be struck, but what it will become when it is. Will it resist and stay as cold, hard stone? Or will it accept, humble itself, and shatter into life?